My name is Ethan, and this is the story of how my seemingly perfect marriage unraveled on a crisp autumn evening, a season that usually symbolized comfort and warmth for me, but now stood for something else entirely. A suspicious return. The air was cool that night, and a thin crescent moon hung overhead. I was alone in our living room with an old movie I'd seen 100 times before and a half finished bottle of wine, the kind Claire usually liked. She had gone out with her friends, or so she claimed, leaving me to my solitary evening. It wasn't like her to stay out so late. For 7 years, Claire and I had moved in a quiet rhythm, sharing inside jokes, finishing each other's sentences, and navigating marriage with what I thought was mutual trust. But as the clock inched past midnight, I felt a peculiar heaviness in the air. At 12:10 a.m., the front door creaked open. Claire stumbled in, cheeks flushed, laughter on her lips, a laughter that sounded forced. I noticed immediately that her hair was slightly messy, and there was a distinct scent of cologne clinging to her clothes. Not the subtle perfume she normally wore, and certainly not mine. Me, setting down my wine glass. Hey, you're home a bit later than usual. Everything okay? Claire, kicking off her heels, collapsing onto the couch. Yeah, it was a great night. The girls and I had a few drinks, talked for hours. You know how it is. Me, forcing a smile. Right, sounds fun. She avoided looking directly at me, choosing instead to fiddle with her phone. Something in her demeanor tugged at my gut, an uneasy feeling like a cold draft sneaking under the door. But I didn't press her. Not yet. It wasn't in my nature to confront without proof. I believed trust was the cornerstone of our marriage, though in hindsight, maybe I was just afraid to face the truth. A shattering discovery. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the kitchen window, baking Claire in golden glow as she hummed softly and prepared breakfast. She seemed unusually cheerful. Her phone buzzed repeatedly on the counter, but she made no move to check it, as though she was purposely ignoring the notifications. When she left the room to grab something from the bedroom, I found my heart pounding. We both knew each other's passcodes, the small gesture of faith we'd once prided ourselves on. Now my hand hovered over her phone, torn between guilt and a desperate need to know what was going on. Me, quietly to myself, just one quick look. I tapped in her passcode, and the screen unlocked. The first thing I saw was a text thread with a contact named M. Last night was amazing. I can still feel your touch. My vision blurred. Blood thundered in my ears as I scrolled through the messages. They were filled with suggestive comments, references to a dimly lit hotel room, and pictures of Claire, smiling broadly, draped over a man I'd never seen before. My stomach clenched as if someone had thrown a punch that knocked the wind out of me. Me whispering, how long has this been going on? I forced myself to lock the phone and place it back exactly where it was. My hand trembled. Rage threatened to boil over, but I reined it in. I needed a plan, not a scene. Claire returned moments later, her face bright as she handed me a plate of scrambled eggs. She kissed my cheek, smiling like nothing had changed. Claire, blissfully unaware. I love these. You make them just right. Thanks, honey. I nodded numbly, the eggs suddenly tasteless in my mouth. The woman across from me, the woman I'd loved for 7 years, had betrayed me in a way I never thought possible. Gathering evidence? I couldn't confront her outright. Not yet. Instead, I played the role of the unsuspecting husband, even as I felt like a ghost in my own life. I watched and listened. I checked her phone whenever I could, finding new damning texts and photos from Mason, as I eventually learned. They had been meeting for months, sneaking away to hotels while I believed she was out with her friends. Days blurred into a haze of forced smiles and quiet, simmering anger. Claire would come home late and offer vague excuses about work drinks or girls' nights, never imagining that I already knew the truth. I methodically collected receipts she carelessly left in her purse, took screenshots of her messages, and documented every suspicious moment. Me thinking, she destroyed the trust between us. I'll make sure she faces the consequences. With my evidence mounting, I began to concoct a plan, a calculated revenge that would take her completely by surprise. I suggested we go on a romantic weekend trip to a secluded mountain cabin. Autumn was in full swing, painting the mountains in warm shades of red and gold. Claire seemed delighted, perhaps hoping this trip meant I was still oblivious. Claire, with genuine excitement, I can't wait. It's been so long since we spent quality time together. I packed my gear, clothes, toiletries, and some camera equipment I claimed was for a new photography hobby. She didn't question it. Why would she? She saw only the image I projected, a devoted husband trying to reignite the spark in our marriage. The first evening at the cabin was picturesque. A cozy fire crackled in the fireplace while we shared a bottle of wine. We reminisced about our early days, our first date at a tiny cafe, the time we got caught in the rain without an umbrella. For a brief moment, the tension in my chest eased, and I almost convinced myself I could forgive her. But then I remembered the texts, the photos, the hotel rooms. Me, smiling through the pain, I'm going to step outside for a moment, set up my camera for some landscape shots. Claire, sure, don't be long. It's getting cold out there. I stepped onto the porch, the crisp mountain air hitting my face. I didn't photograph the scenery. Instead, I double-checked the discreet cameras I'd planted around the living area and bedroom, devices that would capture footage if she decided to continue her illicit chats while we were away. A hint of guilt. The next day, I convinced Claire to go on a scenic hike with me. We walked for hours through winding trails blanketed by fallen leaves. She was uncharacteristically quiet, as if something weighed on her mind. Claire, hesitantly, Ethan, you've been different lately. Is everything okay? Me, mustering a gentle tone. I'm fine, just a lot on my mind. Work deadlines, you know? She studied me for a second, but then let it drop, offering a small shrug. Part of me wondered if she was feeling guilty or if her conscience even troubled her at all. That evening, her phone buzzed repeatedly. She glanced at it, then put it face down on the coffee table. Claire, a slight crease forming on her forehead. Work stuff. They can wait. Me, raising an eyebrow. Sure, let's enjoy the quiet out here. But I knew exactly who was texting her. Later, when she stepped into the bathroom, I picked up her phone. I quickly typed a single message to Mason. Let's end this. Then I deleted the conversation. I wanted to plant confusion to see if it would unravel her cozy affair. No more secrets, at least not for her. The missing ring. When we finally returned home from the cabin, Claire was back to her usual routine late nights, forced smiles, lies so transparent I could see through them with ease. One afternoon, she rummaged through her purse and froze. Claire, voice trembling. Where is it? My wedding ring. I had taken it, of course, hiding it away before we left the cabin. Her ring was now part of my plan, an unmistakable symbol of our bond gone missing right under her nose. Me, faking concern, your wedding ring, that's strange. When did you last have it? Claire, eyes wide, panic rising. I don't know. Maybe I took it off at the cabin or at the hotel. She cut herself off abruptly, realizing her mistake. I kept my expression carefully neutral, forcing her to confront the reality without me having to point it out. The final blow. The next day, while Claire was at work, I set the final stage. I laid out a neatly organized folder on the kitchen table. Inside was everything. Screenshots of her conversations, photos of her clandestine hotel visits, and receipts that matched suspicious dates. When she got home, I made sure I was sitting calmly at the table, waiting for her reaction. Claire, picking up the folder, flipping through the pages. What is all this? Me, quietly, the truth. The truth you've been hiding for months. Her face went pale, her eyes scanning each page with growing horror. Tears began to blur her vision. Claire, Ethan, it's not what it looks like. I can explain. Me, raising a hand to silence her. I don't want your excuses. I want you gone. She opened her mouth to speak, but no words came out. Eventually, she found her voice, tears streaming down her cheeks. Claire, I'm sorry. Please, can't we try to fix this? I love you. I just got confused. Me, coldly. You made your choice. Now I'm making mine. I had already spoken to a lawyer, ensuring a swift divorce that heavily favored me. Claire's name was on nothing. No house title, no major assets. She'd lose it all. She stared at me, clutching the folder like a lifeline, but it offered no salvation. Claire, her voice quivering, Ethan, please, I'll do anything. Don't throw away everything we built. Me, without emotion. You threw it away the moment you decided to lie. She packed a suitcase in a daze. Her tears fell onto the clothes she shoved into the bag, each sob echoing through the house that used to be our home. I watched with a hollow sense of satisfaction, adrenaline coursing through my veins. I felt no pity. She had destroyed my trust, piece by piece, until there was nothing left to save. Aftermath. In the weeks that followed, I methodically rebuilt my life. I changed the locks, made renovations to the house, and even adopted a dog, a friendly Labrador who greeted me with wagging enthusiasm each evening. Claire, on the other hand, struggled. I heard rumors that Mason had ghosted her, refusing to answer her calls. Mutual friends, once sympathetic to her, turned away after learning the details of her betrayal. There were nights when I still felt the sting of betrayal, a dull ache in my chest. But more than that, I felt a triumphant sense of control. I had refused to be a victim, choosing instead to turn the tables. My silence had been my strength. In that quiet, I gathered the evidence and orchestrated the perfect moment to confront her. One evening, I sat on my porch with a glass of whiskey, the setting sun painting the sky in oranges and pinks. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves in our yard. I thought about those nights, her laughter, the scent of unfamiliar cologne, the secret texts. A small smile tugged at my lips. My world had been shattered, but I had rebuilt it on my terms. Me, raising my glass to the horizon, to freedom, and to never letting anyone else take it away. I no longer heard Claire's laughter echoing in the empty house. In its place, I heard the steady rhythm of my own heartbeat, strong and unbroken, and realized I was finally at peace. Author's note: sometimes what begins as a quiet suspicion can evolve into a storm that tears a marriage apart. Betrayal cuts deep, but so does the cold resolve to protect oneself. This is not just a story of vengeance. It's a story of reclaiming power when someone you love has taken you for granted. If there's a lesson here, it's that silence can be a weapon and knowledge can be the key to setting yourself free.